everyone, to our next session. Really excited to be here and really talk about real live examples of scaling AI across the enterprise, and specifically focusing on things like driving adoption, how you actually create value, and how to actually get to scale, right? I think that's something everybody's grappling with, and we've talked about this in different flavors across many of the different sessions today. But I want to start by letting our esteemed panelists introduce themselves. So we can start with you, Saket, and then go down, but would love to tell everybody about your role, quick background, and then we'll get into some meatier questions.
Thanks, Zaki. My name is Saket Malhotra. I'm the global head of digital at BioMarine. It's a mid-sized pharma company. Being in the industry for over 20 years, started my career with big pharma like Amgen, Takeda, moved to mid-size like Ipsen, and now I'm with BioMarine for the last 10 months, leading their digital transformation. AI is a big part of the transformation, how to elevate the experience from commercial and medical affairs standpoints. I oversee these two functions, sitting on the business side, but closely working with my IT partners, my other cross-functional partners, legal, compliance, and they play a very critical role in AI transformation, and what we are going to discuss in terms of our real use cases and the impact, the transformation we are bringing. But AI is not new to many of us, right? I've been using AI for over last like 10, 12 years, did some really innovative pilots, doing like field companions, virtual assist in countries like Japan, China, but now it's picking up because it's really coming together to transform your business, focusing on the value and the impact. There are so many real use cases, the impact which we are going to share with this, but very excited to be here to share my experiences and also learn from my panelists.
Hi everyone, I'm Kelsey McCloche. I am head of life sciences AI strategies at Snowflake. Like Saket, I've spent over 20 years in the life sciences space, but on the technology side for most of my career. As we talk about AI, I also say I'm the old school statistician at heart. I did my PhD in statistics in biomedical and genomics research. So early career was building biomarker discovery, heavily in the R&D and clinical and medical space. And have evolved, of course, now into the full gamut of all of the composite AI approaches around data, data science, analytics. At Snowflake, I really work globally across all of our organizations who have adopted Snowflake for their own data and AI strategies, helping them to accelerate the adoption of those programs and really seeing the return on the investment in terms of how it's changing their business processes.
Awesome. Hi everyone. I have not reached 20 years of experience. I have a little over 15 years of experience in building large-scale systems. I run a startup with the name of Traversal.ai. What we do is we help companies build connective tissues across all their ecosystems. And we've helped a lot of companies build that, bring insights to the ecosystem, build prediction models, and so on and so forth. My background, I was an engineer at Google. My claim to fame there was when you can write long-form search, when you can write a very long query and it answers you. That was the initial code was written by me. Second thing is I worked at Walmart. So I helped build the search engine, which exists right there as of right now. And other than that, I teach at Stanford and UCLA.
So as you can see, we have a very diverse set of panelists. So I think it's going to be a great discussion and so much learning, not just from the life science space, but across different industries. So I'm really excited for this discussion. We did want to keep it real with all of you guys. So I'm going to start by asking each of you, Hamza, we'll start with you and go this way. But can you tell me of one actual use case with AI that you have deployed recently that has had measurable impact? And I think as specific as we can get, that's going to be useful for everybody because that's how you can internalize it to your own business situations and what makes sense.
Going with the hardest question.
Yep, exactly.
So as I said, we build connective tissues across organizations. So we work with a Fortune 10 company, and we help build a customer service agent in which a customer can have a voice conversation with them, ask questions about their orders. So one part is knowledge retrieval. Where is my order? When I'm going to get delivery services, can you please tell me what my address is? Tell me when I'm going to get my things delivered to me. But then you can also make returns. You can also lodge complaints. You can also file for claims. So it can retrieve stuff and it can take actions for you. And the company that we're talking about has about yearly calls about 60 million customers. So they are pushing that to their agent. So it's through call, it's through WhatsApp, it's through texting, it's through their website. So an integrated customer service agent which can retrieve and take action on customers' behalf. And they have seen a huge ROI because the thing is that they were not able to answer all of those customer requests in time. So their SLA was like, we should return to our customers within a week. Now they're able to do it within a day.
That's great. Yeah, and I'm so glad you pointed out like the ROI and how you measure impact. So, Kelsey and Saket include that in when you describe the use case, because I think it's important to really think about what does success look like and making sure that we're, going towards a goal, if you will.
Yeah. So of course I work at Snowflake, and we could share some of our own internal AI success components. In fact, every single employee at our company is required and is metriced around how we use the AI assistants and tools available to us. But more, I'd like to share the successes of some of the AI practical implications that we've seen some of our customers do with the Snowflake platform. For example, one that I think, and actually it's not life sciences specific, in the healthcare system, a very large healthcare organization, the way they approached the problem of how they wanted to think of an AI application was not, I want to do AI. They started with a very significant problem. They said, I want to find the most manual, critical business process that we have that is taking too long and is broken. And what they had was the fact that they had clinician notes, unstructured data, around surgical infection monitoring that they could not get the insights from fast enough to be reactive to what patients needed around that. And instead of that month-long manual process to try to understand the surgical notes or the unstructured clinical information about those surgical infection monitoring systems, they built an automated pipeline around parsing, extracting all of the critical information in order to create a triaging alert system for that. And the measurable impact there was that within 2 weeks of putting that in place, they could see their adoption in the business processes with the clinicians and the teams looking at these monitoring and alert signals, over 85% in terms of the time it used to take before to get to insights. The best other components of this is knowing the necessity of something like surgical site infections. It was over 99% accurate. And the other ROI is that in order to run this automated pipeline of extracting this critical information out of notes and putting it into the hands of clinicians faster, they do it for less than $1,000 a year now as they've automated that. So I think that's the kind of measurable impact we're starting to see. And the analogy is it's replicable. So just like that large hospital system, we're also working with a lot of large global biopharmaceutical organizations as they try to extract medical insights, whether that's for their own review of safety signals or insights around their therapies and their utilization, or in market launch, or in other areas to ensure that they have the right information out around their therapies. So that same type of premise is being put in place to allow organizations to bring together all of those different types of data and have MSL insights or briefings immediately versus weeks of time before something was captured in the field and a business leader has eyes on it.
And for me, the example is like more focused on pharma biotech. So we build the whole model to find patients faster across commercial and medical. And it can be your patients from commercial standpoint, it can be your physicians or key opinion leaders or digital opinion leaders from the medical standpoint. And one of the problem we were trying to solve was how to find leads, because BioMarin is in rare disease where there is no clear endpoint. So you cannot define a very clear patient journeys over the years. The coverage is low, whether you use any leading data providers or real world data, the coverage is 50 to 60%. And we were going through the digital transformation where we were not just looking at the traditional data sets or what we used to call like claims or real world data or lab data. We were thinking how we can bring the digital data, digital touch point, and some of the device signal data to identify these leads and patients, and then bring that to our field teams, our brand marketing teams to shift the focus into more dynamic patient journeys, dynamic targeting, dynamic campaign management with very clear ROI. So what we did, we built the whole data foundation, bringing like our secondary data sets, real world data sets, all the digital data through like websites, congress events, emails, social media, along with some of the intent data or preference data all together to build the unified view of your customer and patient, and then build the whole scoring algorithm based on the impact these touch points can bring to your top line growth with very clear success measure, because outcome is very important, and that is where you build the trust when you are bringing AI as part of your day in a live scenarios. So we did the pilot before we decide to scale the model to other brand and markets, and you need to engage like compliance, legal upfront, because what you can do in US will be very different in Germany when you have to work with the local work councils. So we did that with very clear leading lagging indicators in terms of finding new patients, new patient starts, the conversion from our competitor to our product, the adherence, along with the speed to build the efficiency for your field teams. And the reason I'm saying field, it can be your sales team, it can be your medical MSLs, it can be your FRMs from market access standpoint with very clear measures. So we were able to bring the patient finding from 6 to 8 weeks to daily, real time, high quality with clear scoring, and brands can decide, field can decide that if someone is coming to a website or attending the congress event, they will be the hand raisers and they should get priority over secondary data sources, because there's a lag when you find patient through claims or real world data, right? So we built that whole model, and same thing we did on the campaign side, where we used to like work with external agencies to execute campaigns like 4 to 6 months, and now we are executing campaigns 2 to 3 weeks. So defining a clear impact and ROI and doing a pilot can build that trust with your key business stakeholders and then scale at the enterprise level.
And that's a constant theme that we've been talking about, right? How do you go from pilots to scaling across the org? Hamza, I would love to get your perspective, because you're working on AI initiatives and building, agentic ecosystems across industries. What are some key things or themes that you're seeing across the many different companies you might have worked with in what makes them successful to actually move from pilot to scaled, fully scaled, implemented AI?
I think we'll call year 2023 as the year of pilots and hackathons, where everybody was taking a PDF and making a RAG and says that I've solved search, right? And what we're realizing, I think we're entering the intermediate or a little bit maturity stage, where one of the things that companies are identifying is that they need some kind of search ecosystem. Internally, it needs to be built out. It needs to be available. So companies like Glean are doing extremely well, because that's the first place the customer is coming in. And a lot of customers understand what search in internal system looks like. The second level of agentic growth that is coming in is that customer touch points. How can we, so the conversation we have with our customer is, tell us your problems, not of a demo you saw, and tell us that this is the greatest demo and we want to build this. Tell us the problem you want to solve, and do you need AI to even solve that? Mm-hmm. This is a recurring problem that we are seeing, is that people will say, oh, we need to build AI. It's like, why do you want to build AI? Like, oh, because we saw 5 other customers do it, or competitors do it, so we need to have that. And you're like, you are in FOMO. So companies which are successful, so and I'm going to go on a bit of a tangent, but the three kind of customers we are seeing, we have a FOMO customer who basically is like, I need to have this, I don't know why, but I need to have this. That's like, I think 80% of all customers. 20% is like, I think we know it and we're going to be cautious about it. And the third is that we know what we want and we know how we need. And in terms of the descent, and then the last one, what has worked for them is that they know the business processes inside out. And second, they have their data in place. So they have good data governance, which means is that they are ready to launch something because they understand, they're closer to the customer. They have been reading, so analytical insights from their customer problems, they have been able to identify, this is what we need to solve. So almost like a problem-first approach is what's winning.
Yeah. And what are you seeing? Like, how are leaders actually identifying those business problems? Is there a process?
So I teach a lot of people at Stanford, and I do a lot of executive programs, and that's where so they're going to a lot of consulting companies and other companies and learning. It's almost like there are developers who are trying to learn, and then there are leaders who are trying to get into as many classrooms as possible so that they can learn how to identify ROI use cases, strategies, how to learn that this is the framework I need to follow to identify what kind of use cases are important to us. So I feel like they are learning a lot, and the customer who knows what they want have done a lot of homework, the non-technical homework. Like, they don't care about the architecture you use, but they care about how you're going to solve the problem, and they know exactly what to ask of you.
Got it.
I honestly think the POC purgatory, it's not an AI problem, it's
Yes.
a data problem.
Yes.
I like the duality. You have to start on both ends.
Yes.
Data, having the right data, building the right context, having governance actually as an accelerator to it
Yes.
versus a gate that people fear. And it's also tying that data problem with last mile, knowing what it means to have adoption. You can build the most innovative, perfect, cool model in the world if you're building for AI's sake, but if no one's going to use it, you didn't build anything.
Or you can't scale.
It can't scale if you can't have it adopted, which means it has to live within the same workflow as that user, which what we've seen as we still go through POCs is the business leaders are in those POCs with us now. And half the time I won't even talk to a team if it's only their IT. I'm like, what are you trying to solve for? We don't know. Yep. Come back when you know what you're trying to solve for.
And just to add to what both of you said, I think it's very important to understand not just the problem, it's the opportunity you have in front of you. Looking at what are the outcomes you're trying to achieve, and can AI play a role, and how will you measure the impact and the success of those investments before you think of scaling at the enterprise, because AI is there, but it's not a technology. It's the transformation from the process standpoint, new operating model, ways of working, the new skills. So you have to bring different factors as part of identifying these use cases with very clear impact and the business outcome. And once you identify those business opportunities with clear measurement, then you can decide, are you going to use the traditional AI or generative AI or agentic AI, and why you are going to use any of these, right? Because there's a very clear purpose defined, and at times you may think AI is the right solution, but when you talk to compliance, legal, they may have a very different point of view. So understanding the maturity of your organization, understanding these use cases before you talk about enterprise is very important. And you don't need to scale at enterprise for all the use cases because the technology is there. Like we know there are so many good enterprise level AI platforms out there, but how to leverage in the context of your business value is something you need to do. And it starts with very clear business ownership, working closely with business to identify those use cases, and then quantify what are those KPIs, leading lagging indicators to measure the success. The other big piece to consider is the change management. That is where human in a loop is very important, especially when you are doing a pilot, because the buzz out there is like AI is there to replace your jobs, right? But how you quantify that in terms of different personas is critical. So you need to build that trust, empower them to make decisions. And the other thing what I've seen when you're scaling to the enterprise, leveraging the existing business applications can really minimize the risk involved as you scale. And it can be as simple as when you're finding new patients and executing faster campaigns, or like new ways like always on campaign, which is so new in the pharma industry, where you're not starting or stopping your campaign. It's always on campaign, and based on the insights and any business event, the agents are deciding on the next action, like next wave in that whole campaign journey. And it can be your customer, it can be your patient, right? So how you orchestrate that based on very clear outcome is important. So having humans in the loop can really help you to build that trust and bring your business stakeholders as part of the journey along with your compliance and legal teams.
How many people have had, if you work in the pharma space or other, built a field rep conversational assistant? Yeah. So, side note, I text or I type. The only people I talk on the phone to are my mom and AEs, field reps. Because they're always in the car, right? They're always on the go. And we were building so many conversational field rep chat assistants in different ways. And then it clicked where they weren't using it because they needed it while they're driving, while they're walking. So we actually changed Snowflake to have field voice activation and connected it through a phone number. So instead of them thinking of that, they just dialed it in their car and could start talking to it. Hey, I'm going in to meet this doctor. What were my last call notes? What did we talk about last time? What are his concerns? What points should I talk about today? It changed the game in terms of production. It went to production and it scaled and it was adopted because we recognized that last mile UX of where that value needed to come from. So it's not just human in the loop and how you build AI to be like, did we check the right boxes? Did someone make sure they assessed it? It's also putting AI into the human hands of how they work.
And this is a real example because I did that at Big Pharma in 2016 and I failed because I was not able to bring the change. And it's not about AI, it's the intelligence, it's the insight you're delivering. You're telling your field that here's the event happening, we are learning more from the data, there's a new signal coming, and you're really empowering them to make the right decision based on the intelligence, based on how you have built these models, agnostic of any technology, right? So it's not a technology transformation. Technology is a key enabler, but understanding your business behaviors and the impact is becoming very important. And like many companies are having field companions now, what you were mentioning. And these are like some real proven examples, references you should use, and then do a pilot, take one territory, execute, and then scale at the enterprise level.
You both touched on the theme of change management, right, in different ways, whether it's getting the right experience to the end user to drive adoption or maybe harder change management in some sense. What are some key things to think about or look out for when it comes to change management, specifically when scaling AI solutions? Anybody can start.
I can start.
Yeah, go ahead, Saket.
So for me, like if you're doing the transformation, whether it's leveraging AI, digital, data analytics, change management is very difficult, right? Because we are humans, right? It's not easy for us to change, and you need to consider different and different companies have different ways to bring the change in the organization. They form transformation office, like in my current company, we form the transformation office and their job is to bring the change, bring the organization as part of the journey. transformation is a journey. Like you cannot have like start date, end date. As you learn more in terms of change, you are going to adjust, you are going to bring some new best practices, do the pilot, scale. But few things you should consider as part of the change. First is data and AI literacy. Like you really need to bring the awareness in the organization on it's not another technology play. It's not, we are not doing because everyone is talking about AI. This is why we are doing in the organization, tying that with a very clear business outcome and the value. There should be a very clear buy-in from your business stakeholders because you're trying to address some business opportunities, how it's aligned with your corporate objectives. So when I was hired to lead the digital transformation, we put that after putting the vision, the strategy for the organization, we have that as one of the corporate objectives. So now I have full support from CEO downwards, right? So with very clear outcome, how I'm going to measure the success, what it means for the field team, brand marketing team, US versus ex-US, very clear outcome. So having a very clear business buying and defining those business champions are very important. So that you are not trying to go to the entire field teams or all the marketing brand teams, you are identifying these champions and they are your spokesperson in front of their peers. And that has a very significant impact to the buying, to build the trust because they are living in that. Picking the day in a life scenarios is important. Having very cross-functional governance is important. Many times people think technologies are so mature, why do we need IT as part of it? But IT will play a very critical role when it comes to security, single sign, so they have a role to play. So clearly identifying these key stakeholders across different functions are important. And you should bring them when you start the project after defining the vision, the strategy, they should be part of as your advisor as part of that journey and then look for some quick wins because when you show the outcome, you build the trust, you bring the momentum and then you can scale are some of the factors you should consider as part of your journey.
So I will add, because we talk to a bunch of companies. We're just not one person who's a consumer. We go out. So we are the people who talk to the transformation and the L&D team. And the conversation starts with one CIO or CTO says, we have to drive this change. So the thing that we have, and we get 2 days or 1 day or sometimes half a day. That's all you have to do to change their mind. So what we have started doing is that we start our first slide is, what can AI do for your company? And we give them highly specialized examples of what they can do today. And we do a homework on the customer, the vertical they are in, the competitive space they are in, and where they currently exist. So we go in very personalized. And I think that training or that credibility through giving them something which they are familiar with, because a lot of companies, what they do is they go and do trainings like what is prompt engineering or what is context engineering, and then you're like, why do I need to know?
Abstract topics.
Right, abstract topics. We tell people do application, like talk about what my company can use AI for today. And once we have that conversation, it's a change in mind. And then we always have that ROI slide at the end. It says, if you do this is the expected outcome. And we do sort of a lot of scenario planning. So I think a lot of us are still in that enabling change management. So there are people internally like you who are like, I'm going to be the change in the company. And then we connect with a person like you and say, okay, you guys help us change that. Right?
Change minds, change hearts too. I think it's the idea of what can you do with AI.
Yeah.
I'm a big hands-on person. I used to build things myself, and when I stopped building them, I stopped wanting to use them because it was a black box, right?
Yeah.
We just recently released a Snowflake. It's called Cortex Code, or Coco. It's an AI agent for coding agent. Knows all things Snowflake. And it's changed the game for me, and it's changing the game for our customers, because now I was talking to a global VP of commercial insights around precision oncology, who hasn't touched data or done analytics in years. And she used Coco to ask questions of the data that weren't just a chatbot, but actually said, build me something that shows me what my HCP universe is and what does targeting look like today? And like, she did it, right? And when they start doing it, then you start trusting it. So it's that changing of the heart too, to say, you know what, we're lowering the barriers of what it means to build. Now, of course, that's a POC, it's an insight, but that's the biggest way you create trust, right? When people don't think it's this scary unknown box that does things for them, and it's something they are directing to use, that's empowerment, that's change management. So it goes from the top down to actually that bottom up as well.
Yeah, and we see that with our customers too, with Marmot specifically, right? Like when they have that aha moment, it's after using it for a few things, and suddenly you're able to do something and unlock this insight that otherwise you would had to like work with a consultant for, or ask somebody on your team to do it, and wait 2 weeks and then have follow-ups, and then it's like
time to insight.
Exactly.
One of the analytics person supporting the woman I mentioned said, well, why are you doing that? We'll get you that report in 2 weeks.
Yeah,
I already know now.
And at that time, you know, to what Paul Gurney was saying earlier, like, this is your problem right now. That's the flow you're in. You want your answer now so you can keep moving with certain decisions. When you get it in 2 weeks, you're probably
great.
Focus on something else, right?
And one other advice I would give, like, it's a change in the mindset, right? So don't have one narrative for different business partners. When you're in front of your IT partners, you should have very different narrative as compared to your marketers, as compared to your field leadership team. You will see a different level of adoption and impact. Defining like the current state versus future is important. And the other big piece is like what it means for me, because there will be some roles we may not need in future with AI coming, right? So how do you communicate that to the organization, right? Giving them the opportunity to upskill. Your internal talent is important. So there's a very thin line. So you need to be focusing on change management, the way you're going to communicate the narrative, and getting a buy-in from within the organization is critical.
It's a good segue into, I'm moving around in some of our topics, just given the conversation here, but you know, when you think about changing roles and how organizations look and what people's remits are and what they do, what are some of the trends you're seeing or you anticipate when it comes to really embedding AI into, you know, day-to-day workflows?
So I can go for that. This morning I gave a talk on that very particular topic. It says, you're not a software engineer, you're not a product manager. You're just an AI person or AI engineer in the company now. So we are spending time with a lot of product managers, teaching them just the very basics of what a front end is, what a back end is, what an AI back end is. And we're telling the developers that the time that you could sit in a corner and just write code is over for you. You have to get out of your shell. You have to be interactive. So a lot of things it's like we are merging a lot of roles together. A PM has to be a developer has to be a PM. And this goes to middle management. Everyone who's an IC, even senior leadership has to think differently. Because the moat is to use these tools to become more productive. And if you're doing bare minimum, just at the bare minimum that I'm going to use AI and get done, your manager and your managers also know that this was AI generated, you know, with those M dashes and those delve words like delve. So at the end of the day, we are seeing a lot of merging of roles and things, and it is scary, but it is not scary for people who have always wanted to learn. It is people who have not, stopped learning, and it's like, oh, I've made it. I don't need to grow, or I will just progress in my career, and I don't need. I think that is where it's very alarming, or they need to be very, very concerned that they need to start moving, because this is the first time in our ecosystem that every vertical is affected. be it healthcare, be it retail, be it any one of them. Every vertical, every horizontal space is being affected, and people are thinking, how do we become more productive? So we have to sort of get up and start learning now.
And that's very important, right? Learning agility. So a few things just to add to what Hamza said. When you're hiring the talent, right? Nowadays, companies are looking from a very different lens. They are not looking for specialists in many of these roles because there are technologies out there who can do the job for you. Very proven technologies. I can give you an example like how you do targeting segmentation, right? So typically in the past, brand marketers used to hire external agencies or some of the SI partners to develop these targets every quarter, every 6 months. But there are AI tools out there where you can do this real time. You can sit next to a marketer and you can slice and dice the data real time. But before you go and talk about AI and what type of skills you need, I think understanding of data is very important in the AI world, right? Many organizations underestimate the power of data. And when I say data, it's not like claims, it's more unified data, like what business problem or use cases you're trying to solve, what are the different data sets you have, and how you're going to build that unified across different data sources, because the markets are becoming very competitive. So everyone buys Komodo or other data sources, everyone is looking for lab data. But how you bring that, apply these models and build the intelligence is important. So you need to look for talents from more specialists. You need specialists in many cases, but also some of the generalists who can think like a business, who can think like the value, the outcome, and bring them and invest in those talent, but parallelly look for upskilling your internal talent. And if someone is not open to learn new things and be part of the transformation journey, they may not be the good asset for the company long term. And I know it's very hard decision, but if you're really competing in this market and looking for your top line objectives, so it's a very different lens to bring that change in the organization. And that is where the leadership is looking for the talent who can bring the change, who can be the change agent, who can bring the value, be more outcome focused, and then look for internal talent and build the competency so that you have less reliance on the external partners and build that internally with very clear outcome and the value.